Welcome to Talent Titans, the podcast where we bring you entrepreneurs and leaders from the global staffing industry. I'm your host, Suky Sodhi. Now let's jump right on in and welcome today's Titan.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Talent Titans. We are going to be talking all things tech with Ryan from Quil. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, look, before we dive in, because I have so many questions, who are you? Who is Quil?
Yeah, so my name is Ryan Frampton. I started Quil with my co-founder Jordan a couple of years ago now. It's time flies. And what we do is we automate note-taking, applicant tracking system updates, and all of that terrible admin work that all recruiters love to do. We take that off their plate so they can focus on building relationships.
Amazing. And you are proudly Canadian.
And we're a Canadian company. We're one of the only recruiting Canadian companies, I think, out there.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I have really struggled for my summits and what have you to find truly Canadian tech launches for our industry. So I'm really excited on this one. You say note taker, but you guys do so much more than that. But before we dive into that, I got a question for you. You guys don't come from the staffing industry.
No,
Why
not at
did
all.
you decide to disrupt this industry?
Yeah, it was actually a big accident. So the quick backstory around how Quil started is we actually were called Sales Q before. Myself, I was a two-time head of sales at software companies. So I managed big sales teams, scaled them up. One company being Vidyard, another company being a company called Hypercomply. And I always had one problem at both of those companies, which was my sales team would not update the CRM. So a lot of staffing firms are also using their ATS as a CRM, or they have both. So it's a very similar problem. And I found I was spending more time complaining to my sales team that, hey, you're now out sick. I have no idea what happened in this deal. And now I'm going on a call with the person trying to fill in. And I'm spending more time doing that coaching than actual skills coaching and helping the team improve their sales ability. So I teamed up with Jordan, who was a lead developer at CoinSquare at the time, to kind of solve that problem. And we were growing. We got to dozens of customers there. But then randomly, we had a staffing firm who used Bullhorn for Salesforce. Mm-hmm. And because they used Salesforce in that part of that equation, we integrated based on what we were doing for software companies. And they immediately just fell in love with the tool. We were kind of a little gun shy to be like, hey, I don't know if this is right for you. We didn't really build this for you in mind. But they're like, hey, just let us try it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, no hard feelings. They tried it over a couple of weeks and absolutely fell in love with it. They purchased for their whole team. Then they started referring all of their staffing friends. And within 2 months, we had more revenue in staffing than we did for the last 13 months on the other vertical. And then we went from 5 customers to 450 in 12 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Definitely a need, right?
It was completely by accident. It was not like a crazy mad scientist idea at all.
But now, correct me if I'm wrong, now you've changed your client avatar, and your client avatar is just staffing agencies, whether it's retained search firms, contingency, contracting, direct hire. That's it. Your sole client base is for the staffing industry.
Yeah, we have one customer that's still on us that's not a staffing or third-party recruiting firm. When we told them we were completely focusing, they're like, hey, that's all good. I'm just going to keep using it. But other than that, every other client is third-party recruiting.
So you just got the one legacy client.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody else, we're completely focused on the recruiting space.
And you guys have gone international.
Yeah, really quickly. Yeah, we're in 16 different countries now. We have a large presence in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and then Canada and the US, of course.
Amazing. So let's dive in. Note taker. I'm thinking I get that free with my Google, Gemini, or you can go and pay Otter AI, or what's the other one? Firefly, is it Firefly?
Yeah.
I mean, I could name 100.
Yeah.
What are you guys offering that they're not offering?
Yeah. Yeah. The reason why we go with the note taking side is because that's kind of where this idea lives in people's heads right now. But then when they see a demo of Quil, what they quickly realize is their Fireflies, their Otter, it one doesn't work with all their communication methods. Those are mainly just for Zoom calls, Microsoft Teams calls. We actually work when you're using your cell phone. So you don't need to be using like a VoIP provider. You can be using a VoIP provider as well. We can work with in-person meetings. So you can be having a coffee with a client for more of the business development side, have notes taken. And then most importantly, it then updates your applicant tracking system in CRM after that. So if you're using something like Bullhorn, Job Adder, Loxo, we have 35 plus ATS and CRM integrations at this point. You never have to go to the pick list fields and fill out like all their skills and stuff like that. Quil will just do that for you automatically. So it really saves time on that admin piece so that when you're now searching for a candidate for a future client in 6 months, you actually have candidates popping up in your own database. So you don't have to spend a massive amount on LinkedIn Recruiter, for example, and be so reliant on a tool like that. And then lastly, we help with the submittal process. So a lot of times you're fighting with Word docs, you're trying to add your branding, you're trying to reformat the CV or the resume, and instead Quil will just automate that process for you based on your preferred formatting, your preferred writing style.
So there are so many things that you said here. I mean, like, full transparency, we're in the process of implementing Quil in our business. And the one when you and I were talking, the big one for me from a personal one was the fact that we can use it in live meetings off my mobile phone, because I'll be in the car and I'll be on a call. I'll be doing this and I'll be on a call. And my current note taker doesn't work. It works if I'm doing this, whether I'm Zoom, Google Meet, stuff like that. Cool, that works. So that was a big thing for me. That was like, okay, the one I haven't, and I kind of like, oh, I don't know how this would work. Obviously, it's
Yep.
working because you've got clients, is the in person. Hold on, let me just sit here and record this. Right. So
Yep.
I don't know about that one. And in fact,
Yep.
have you had feedback on that? How do people react when suddenly you, it's like that old, oh God, now I'm really showing my age. You know, those recorders the
Yeah. Yeah.
dictaphones? There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's like pulling one of those out. How do people
Yeah.
react to that? Have you had any
Yeah, so I
feedback?
think it's all about the messaging, but I think everybody initially, when they think of that, just like when you started your business, when I started my business, you have that like kind of gut, like kind of fear feeling. You're like, I haven't seen this work yet, so I don't know what's going to happen. When folks actually try it and they frame it more as like, hey, like, do you mind if I just like use my note taker so I can give you my full attention, actually like have a conversation with you? They immediately find that they're asking better questions. They're actually asking follow-up questions because they're not like head down at their desk, like taking notes and trying to figure it out. So the client actually appreciates it more. Of course, there's going to be some clients that have restrictions on note taking or whatnot that happen. You deal with that on a case by case basis and you make sure that you're disclosing it. But we've found the reaction of recruiters after they've tried it is that it gives them more genuine conversations and they're actually becoming better advocates for their clients and better interviewers when they're in the candidate perspective.
Because you're what's the word I'm looking? You're in the moment, right? You're fully
Yeah.
present.
Yeah. Well, I know I've taken notes. Like I had like these are all empty now because I use Quil,
Yeah.
but I I used to just have like a bunch of chicken scratch at the end of my meetings. It's like, what did I even write here? This doesn't make any sense. And then you're focused on like, this is super important. I cannot forget this, rather than being like, oh, that's important. Let me click in on why that matters so much for my client. And you're asking deeper questions. You're getting to the bottom of things that you before didn't even realize you were missing. So that's one of the most surprising things when folks implement Quil in all of these settings that they haven't thought of using a note taker in, is how much it allows them to be present, to your point.
So you're dealing with just the staffing industry, 16
Yeah.
countries. What was your biggest shock when you started dealing with, and it doesn't matter what kind of staffing somebody does, right? What was the kind of like, really moment? And what have you found?
Yeah, I would say the database of Word docs that a lot of staffing firms have, like they have templates for absolutely everything. Like, here's my reference call form, right? This is what we use for reference calls. This is what we use for job intakes. This is what we use for this type of candidate submittal. When we're doing like a health check with a candidate 30 days after, this is the form we're using. So it's all a very well documented process, but extremely manual. That was one surprise. Another surprise is that how big the industry actually is.
Yeah.
Like when we were pivoting and I was telling all our investors, because we're venture backed, hey, we're going to go completely after the third party recruiting world. They almost all like were super scared, which is why I feel like there's not many companies actually focus exclusively on third party. You'll see companies focused on recruiting,
Yep.
but a lot of their website is corporate recruiting logos and things like that. Whereas in the venture landscape, they think the market is so small. But if you look at Bullhorn, they're like, what, 300 million ARR around there, maybe more. And that's one of the ATSs.
Yep.
Then you have Aviante, which is probably the next biggest at like 300 employees. So it's a massive, massive market.
It is. I haven't looked at the recent stats, but I want to say 6.5 billion, of which the US is just under 500, and
Yeah.
then followed by Japan. Funnily enough, Japan is the second largest.
Yeah, we have some customers in Japan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
second largest. And then third, I think, if I remember correctly, is UK, France, Germany. They float around there, right? It's a massive, massive market.
Yeah. Well, I think the stat that I came across is there's like 30,000 boutique search firms in the UK alone.
Yep.
So
They're the ones that you know about.
yeah, that you know about exactly. Because there's a lot of just solo professionals that have it as more of like a business that's feeding their lifestyle and they're enjoy it's something they enjoy doing. Maybe they've worked with their clients for the past 10 years before and now they've opened up a staffing business to help augment their former colleagues. And they're doing really well. Like we hear some of those folks billing like even $1 million a year.
Yeah. But what you'll also find is if you think about it like this, if you need a person in any business, there's a need for staff. There's a staffing agency. I was shocked that when I discovered that there were staffing agencies that only staff churches.
Oh yeah.
Very, very niche, right?
My favorite is that I came across was there's someone that we work with and they just do they work with glass manufacturing executives.
Oh, wow.
So there's maybe like 200 factories, like glass factories in the US, and they staff all of the executives at those factories.
It's
So
amazing.
they just know all of these people, and then when there's a client need, they're the person to go to.
Yeah, but that's why the market is so big.
Yeah.
Right. That's why the market is so big. Okay, so you touched on how quote unquote manual the industry still is. Why do you think that is?
When we look at just the technology adoption, I feel like it's been a lot slower than in like where I come from, like the software space. So I think one of the things I kind of see is whatever's happening in technology companies, what technology companies are doing from like a call transcription perspective, as like my example, the staffing industry historically has been like 3 to 5 years behind around what they're actually applying. And that's one of the things that we're trying to change is bring what the latest technology, the most effective technology that technology companies are using into the staffing firms. I don't know if that's just been reluctancy to change. We're not seeing that just based on how much kind of demand we're seeing from a customer perspective and how excited people are to try it out. I think what probably is the core issue is less of the the demand side of it and more the supply side. There's nobody that's willing to build these ATS integrations for these staffing firms. There's nobody willing to build the specific workflows. So all of the cutting edge technology is a puzzle piece that doesn't quite fit. It's being hacked together. And it's like, this is an amazing idea. I could use X, but it doesn't really work for staffing, but I'm going to try to make it work anyways. And that leaves some people, the early adopters, the technologists of the industry, implement that. But that's only 10% of the industry. The other 90% is sitting there saying, yeah, this stuff would be cool and great and would work really well for us, but it doesn't really fit our needs because of XYZ reason. And I think that's why we've been able to like break through so quickly, because we've kind of flipped that on its head and we're bringing like the latest technology to this industry.
I think that's valid points. I was just thinking, I think I misspoke on the industry spend earlier, but whatever. You talk about not adopting or late adopters or however, I can't remember how you phrased it. I wonder how much of that is because it is quote unquote so fragmented and there are so many people in the business. So here in Toronto last year, the Ontario license, was it last year? Yeah, last year it came in. And I think it's something like 4,500 licenses issued or in the process. And that is just for Ontario. Some of them are people not in Ontario, but they want to work here, right? So if you look at that and people are doing their niche and they're working from home, and maybe they're just supplying their local, I'm thinking temp labor now, maybe they're just supplying their local town. And they've always done it that way. It's worked. And they're not really, I'm not saying they're not open to change. They just don't see the need for change.
Yeah. Speaking from the software industry, like where I come from, it's very common to have a 1 to 2 year tenure at each company as well, at both the executive level and the mid level, who are the ones that are buying and implementing technology. So if you've bought a technology or someone at at your current company bought a technology and then you go and leave to another company, you're telling all of them, hey, we need to bring this in because this helps so much. So that could also be, I don't know what the turnover is like internally at more of the boutique level. I would say it's less than maybe the large staffing firms that have a lot of frequent turnover, but that could also be a reason.
I think
I haven't quite figured out yet. I have a lot of like theories around it, but I don't know the answer.
I think the truth is it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, right? But one of the things that I'm finding, and I actually done a LinkedIn post on this yesterday or the day before, like there is room for technology in this industry, but we're a people business.
Yeah.
So I think there is certainly when I look at any kind of tech, I'm not trying to replace myself. I'm trying to streamline what I do and what my team does. So we are working closest to the dollar.
Yeah.
Not sitting there trying to decipher my handwritten notes and key them into, that kind of stuff, right? But I think also there's been so much disruption. So many people have tried to disrupt this industry, and I'm going to use lead gen, AI, ChatGPT. Okay.
Sure.
Oh my God, the number of emails I'm getting is like I got one, and that's the one I posted about. It started off really, really well. Hey, I love I was reading up on your journey, moving from England to Canada. I was like, oh, they actually done a little bit of homework on me. And then boom, it was, you posted this job. It's not even, I only recruit for the recruiting industry. It was nothing. I think it was a techie job. I can't remember. I'm like, oh my God, they used an automation to go and find something from my profile. Okay, English in Canada, 2005.
Yeah.
That was their opening line. So they got me on the opening line, and then it was just a bulk standard.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so much of that happening that I know I have tech fatigue.
Yeah. Well, also with AI coming in the forefront, how a lot of AI is unfortunately being framed and even aspired to be is that it's going to replace people.
Yeah.
And I think one of the interesting aspects of recruiting is it, to your point, it's so relationship driven. It's so people driven. It's a lot about trust, which is why I think it's one of the last things, if ever, to get disrupted in that way. Instead, it's AI will definitely help the workflows and streamlining processes, but you have to have the human aspects. Because at the end of the day, people buy from people. People want to do business with people because it's a trust, it's a reciprocity component of just like human nature. And a lot of when you're using AI in these harmful ways, I would say, like I think the tool that those folks are probably using is something called Clay, which can like pull from LinkedIn profiles, and that can be helpful in a research concept, but not to just plainly automate something and send out a bunch of garbage.
Yeah.
So it can be harmful, it can be helpful, and it unfortunately there's likely a lot more harmful stuff being sold than helpful stuff
Well,
being sold.
it gets to that stage because even when I went to my guy who looks after all of this, and I was like, I need you to talk to Quil, and he just like, here she goes again, right?
Yeah.
Because you can appreciate I got all this outreach, da 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 da
Yeah.
da, right? So, and I tried to look at everything.
Yeah.
Whether I implement it in my business, it might not be relevant for my business, but it might be relevant for some of my clients. But it's like, okay, so what am I missing here? Because I'm the first to admit I don't think like a tech person, right?
Sure.
And I think also what's happening, oh, and let me rephrase that, potentially happening. You have individuals who are tired of the sales, the sales part of it,
Yeah.
right? And they're looking for an easier,
Silver bullet.
the silver
Yeah.
bullet, right?
But the sales thing is the thing. Like you can't really get away from it.
Yeah, but they're
That's
looking
the
for
thing.
that silver bullet, right? And it's almost, oh God, I don't even, not even sure if I could, I'm sure someone's going to come at me for saying this, but it's like preying on those people that don't want to, that don't
Yeah,
want to pick
lazy.
up the phone. And you got to
Yeah.
remember, we're pack animals.
Mm,
Right? As much as automation, there's something like I'm 100% like, you know what? Uber Eats. Fantastic.
yeah.
Right? Perfect. Uber driver. I need to get from point A to point B. Perfect. Done. Not a problem. But when it comes to your career, your business, your livelihood, I don't know about you, but I still want to be able to talk to somebody. Who am I
Yeah.
trusting with my career? Who am I
Yeah.
trusting with my business?
Hmm.
And it's all
Yeah.
been, people are trying to automate almost the wrong part in that
Yeah.
sense.
Well, even a lot of software that you might use, you might start seeing more and more. It's like you have an issue, talk to this AI, and there's no way to talk to a human. It just like forces you to continue talking to this AI that doesn't understand the nuance of your problem, that is giving you, you're already frustrated, and it's giving you answers that are just making you more frustrated. And I see that in a lot of the software that we use, is that would start moving to. But again, that's one of those critical moments that, and that's how I'd kind of segment it out around like what matters and what doesn't. Is it a critical moment? Like meeting a client for the first time via email, even not even just in person, that's a critical moment. Answering a rightfully often frustrated customer's issue because either your software wasn't as user friendly as you thought it was or straightforward as you thought it was, that's another critical moment. You want to make sure that you're not just handing the keys over to AI and saying good luck, because that also just demonstrates that you don't care about those critical moments. And yes, those are often the most exhausting things to deal with,
Yeah.
but that's what separates who's successful versus who's struggling in a business growth perspective.
Well, Zoom Info got me on that a couple of weeks ago. I was trying to set up the registration for the webinar.
Yeah.
I just admitted I'm not very good techie. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, how do I do? So I go into the chat and I'm like, no, that is not what that's not what I'm asking. Right. And
Yeah.
I kept thinking of different ways to ask the question to get over the hurdle. And so you know what I done? I called a friend. right?
Yeah.
I rang up a friend. I knew he would know. So I just rang him and said, I'm sorry, but you got to help me out here. I got to do this, right? And he was like, okay, do this, da, 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 click here and all the rest of it, right?
Yep.
So technology definitely has a place,
Yes.
right? I
Yeah.
don't think either of us are saying it doesn't, but here's a question for you. We talked about the repetitive administrative, albeit it's important.
Yep.
Do you know how much time on average you're saving?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. We surveyed our customers, and the average recruiter is saving 8 hours per week. And I think the biggest thing is they're either, well, I would say they're saving that mainly with like the database fields that are very time consuming, and then the submittal content, the reference check forms and things like that. Those are all very time consuming. And if you automate them well, and of course you give it a once over to make sure everything looks good, that's going to save a ton of time. The other group saves zero time because they didn't do it at all in the first place. The ATS is just empty,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not what they value as a critical moment. They rather be talking to clients and talking to candidates and using their personality to really shine through and grow, which is probably the right decision. But your life can be made a lot easier in the future if you do have an enriched database and you're doing those more tedious like admin tasks as well. But let AI do that because that's less critical than actually having those conversations
Well,
with those clients.
I guess the thought that went through my mind as you were just saying that, the ones that don't use the database, that's all well and good. But if you've got a competitor in that account and they have some baseline tech automation in place that is done correctly,
Yeah.
right? You're potentially going to miss out on a candidate or an opportunity
Yeah.
because it took you longer to outreach that person. Because the truth of
Yeah.
the matter is, I'll now just send someone a text message,
Yeah.
right? Say, hey, I need to talk to you about this job, this, what a client, this interview, whatever the case may be. When can you talk? So I've got them.
Yeah. And the relevance of that message can be increased, not by having AI to write the message for you, but instead by having those comprehensive notes and data points on that person to say, hey, they really cared about this type of hourly structure or this type of schedule, or hey, they were actually willing to relocate to this location and this job fits their exact preferences. It's just in this other location. If I didn't know that they're willing to relocate, maybe I wouldn't even think of them for this role. So that's some of the things that we're seeing our clients take advantage of.
I, I just want to come back to the data fields mapping.
Yeah.
So if I've understood the system correctly, it is, so let's say the candidate says New York City, right?
Yeah.
That's it. It'll just, instead of me having to go in, drop down menu, all the rest of
Yeah.
it, boom, it's gone. Because you're right, they're the
Yeah.
tedious part, they're the part that get missed,
Yeah. They're annoying. They're
right? It is
annoying.
annoying, right? You're
Yeah.
going over there. So I had to do I was creating a new client file in the system yesterday, and the website, the client website. I was like, oh God, what's the client website? I looked on the signature because I said create a record, but the website wasn't on there. So then I had to go and find the website. And it is just frustrating,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's that frustration part. You talked about earlier about the CV submittal, right? The resume submittal part. You don't have to use everything that you guys offer, right? So if someone only wants this part, maybe they've
Mhm.
been burnt and they want to just try this part first.
Yeah.
That's an option, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A lot of how we actually find customers come on board with us is they have a very specific problem that they're trying to solve. Hey, my CVs take way too long to reformat, or my database fields aren't getting updated, or I take a lot of calls from my cell phone and my current note taker doesn't work with that. They come with like one problem, and then we solve that problem for them. And then over time, they might explore the other things that we do and get value out of them, or they might be totally happy with just solving that one core issue that they had now in a really well done way. So yeah, you can kind of pick which problem you want to solve, and we'll help you solve it.
Yeah, because again, I said it earlier, there's this fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
There's this, and those, I want to actually, you talked earlier about the industry maybe not adopting as fast as some other industries. And I said, it might be that they've always done it this way. They look after the local area and stuff like that. What have you found has been the biggest hesitation then? What has been that one thing,
Yeah.
that objection that you're constantly seeing?
Yeah. I would say from like the very like top of funnel perspective,
Yep.
like if someone were, because that's where I think most people would not look at like if someone tries Quil, we have a 75 to 80% conversion of them becoming a paying customer. So we actually have like a really strong bottom of funnel of folks trying the tool, loving it, and then continuing. I think where I see a lot of people not even being willing to go on a website and look or even have a call is the fear of AI right now,
Oh, it's just back to
specifically.
that fear.
Yeah, it's more of the I don't want to use something or provide any contribution to something that could replace me, or I don't want. So it's really coming to the fear aspect. We don't replace
Yeah.
recruiters whatsoever, but that's kind of I think the blanket state where they're almost technology adverse. Some folks in the industry, I would say that's not the industry as a whole, obviously, but there is a non-small portion, I would say, that does have that mentality.
It's interesting because I thought you were going to say go back to no, they have their note taker.
Yeah, that's one thing as
Yeah,
well.
but that early adoption or refusing to adopt, because in my mind that's crazy, because if you don't have technology, you're a dying breed. You're dying a slower death.
Yeah, like you have to adapt to the current game on the field. But if you go to any of my LinkedIn, I post pretty frequently on LinkedIn. If you go to my posts on LinkedIn, you'll see half the comments are to your exact point. 100%. This is amazing. You got to adapt. You like this is helping folks like do more of what they want to do and less of the tedious, hated tasks. The other half of the comments are we hate AI. So like that's what we see as kind of like the two sides of the market right now. There's folks that are cautiously optimistic,
Hmm.
and which is the right way. You should not be non-cautiously
Yep.
optimistic. And then there's folks that are like very anti. And I think it's fear-based, which I have empathy towards, right? Like it is one of the scarier times in a technological change, right? We're hearing OpenAI spin up like massive data centers in Texas that
Yep.
are bigger than anything that we've ever seen before because they want to create artificial general intelligence, right? However they define that. So it can be overwhelming for folks, particularly if they're in a tougher market. The staffing industry hasn't been the easiest place over the last few years for a lot of recruiting
Yep.
firms that we talk to. So I think that combined with all of these super far out ideas from the AI leaders like OpenAI, it can overwhelm folks and scare folks. I have total empathy towards it. I don't think that's the right approach,
But you understand it.
but I understand it.
Are you finding there is a certain demographic of people that are fearful and quote unquote refusing to adopt? Or are you seeing it? No, it's just,
No, I don't think so. Like we have customers that are 20 years old. We have customers that are literally 80 years old. Like a lot.
yeah.
A lot of older folks that have been doing recruiting for 30 plus years, 40 plus years, have had their business. Then before that, they were working at a firm for another 20 years, right? So like we have like a really wide range of demographics, locations even we talked about, right? Like in all parts of the world. I think it's really just how folks are perceiving the current situation.
I'm
That
glad you
tends.
said that, because I done a podcast with a lady out of the UK, and she found herself out of work, close to
Mhm.
quote unquote retirement age, and that whole ageism thing, right? And
Yeah.
and then I saw another post this week, and people are, oh, but older people
Mhm.
don't adopt technology, resist change. You've just said that is not true.
Oh no. Like we've even had one of our customers, he came to us and he's like, "Hey, I love this business. I love what I do. I am never going to retire. They're going to have to drag me out of my office. And my hands, unfortunately, aren't the same as before. So I can't type as fast. And I don't want to let that hold me back. So that's when I heard about, we did a LinkedIn post and he saw that and he became a customer. And we even had another individual that wasn't like in the older demographic, more like middle aged. And he unfortunately had a health circumstance that made him lose all ability in his
Oh,
arms,
wow.
and
Gosh.
he was thinking of having to like retire just out of necessity. And then he started using Quil, and now he bought his business partner out of the business, and he's going full force with it. So there's tons of different people come from different circumstances, different walks of life that are all implementing technology in a positive way. I think it just goes back to like some folks just have a more pessimistic view naturally, which is they're going to initially push back. I think they'll come around to it in a few years as they start seeing more and more of their peers get value out of new technology, but it will take some time.
Yeah, I love the fact that we touched on this because there is a misconception that the younger generation are the ones that are forward thinking, tech savvy, adopting
Yeah, not
technology faster.
necessarily. Not necessarily at all.
Yeah. Here's the thing, I'm definitely not young. And I'm not tech minded. I've said this a million times already, but you know what? I know we need technology,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's something that doesn't interest me, if I'm being really honest. I don't care how something works, I care that it works,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
right?
And that's where I think you should be, right? Like I don't think it doesn't necessarily matter how it works. It just matters, is it solving a core problem for you? And is it solving it well? That's the key.
Exactly. Is it solving it well? Is it compliant? Is the data safe? Then I pass it on to my team and say, right, now you guys figure this bit out,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
ultimately, you just said earlier, when you start seeing your other people adopting it, that's when some of these people you think are going to adopt it. I think they're going to have to adopt it sooner than that, because when they start losing business for simply speed to market.
Yeah. I don't think they'll, I agree with you, but I don't think that will actually happen because I don't think they'll even know why that's happening.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Like think about it. If you have an ATS that has all of the data in the world from all your conversations, makes it super easy to search. The other person doesn't, has never had it, doesn't know that you have that, but they're randomly starting to lose more and more placements that they feel that they would have had. It might even make the problem worse, or they're going to continue. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, I don't think that will actually cause them to change, just because these things happen in kind of silence and in silos.
You know what? You just made a really interesting point. So, anyone listening to this and they're looking at their business and they're saying, why are we quote unquote losing business, slowing down, that type of thing? Maybe this is a conversation they need to start having and looking at their tech stack, right?
Yeah, I think it's just I would solve everything is like what's our core issue, right? Like we're not having a lot of new client introductions. A lot of our clients are no longer clients for whatever reason. So we need to fill our client base again. What are ways that we could solve this problem? Technology and not technology. And just start experimenting with all of those potential options. And you might find that a non technology option works. You might find a technology option works, or both. And like that's how I would solve the problem rather than being so. I even see on the other side of the coin, like there's some people that are like, I need to implement everything AI,
Yeah.
which is not like that's not what you should be doing.
No.
Don't do that because you're just going to have all these fancy bells and whistles that you really don't need, that aren't solving any problem that you actually had. And now your biggest problem is your expenses just went up and you didn't get any benefits from it. So you really just have to have a balanced view in these settings and try to ground yourself with, okay, like, what are my core problems? And then talk to colleagues, talk to folks. How are you solving these problems today? And try to learn from your peers, which is why I think the events that you run and think, I think they're amazing to attend, because you can actually learn from folks that might have a different experiment that they ran.
Yep.
Now you don't have to run 10 experiments. You can just learn from them.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Last year's CEO panel, I asked them the question of all the tech that you've implemented, what percentage gets used? And it was about half.
Yeah.
Right? It was about half. And I recorded a podcast with the founder of Project 13, Dave Sweetman, yesterday. And he's been in business 2 months. And I asked him a question. I was like, looking back, what should you have not done? And he said exactly what you just said. The amount of tech, he didn't need it all.
Yeah. And it's also, to your point, like you mentioned, tech fatigue, right? That comes on the sales side, like kind of where because you're the leader, so you're getting all the prospecting messages, for better or for worse, right? So you're like, there's so much stuff out there that I have not heard about. Do I look at this as another thing? Wow, that's overwhelming. You're tech fatigue. But then if you're implementing new technology constantly at your firm, that's also going to make your team tech fatigue. And it's like, okay, which one am I going to use? They trial this one, they do it for 6 months, and then it goes away. So next one I'm not even going to use because I know it will go away in 6 months, right?
That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's try to be really deliberate around, again, what problem am I trying to solve? I'm going to pick one technology. We might test it with a smaller group, like a couple of folks that are more interested, naturally inclined to use technology. We're going to test it with those folks, going to prove it out. We're going to decide what's that one thing that's going to move the needle for us. And then we'll actually bring that to the team to kind of isolate them away from that fatigue. Because there's people that get energized by it, but that's not the majority of people.
No. What I find because we're a smaller team, Sanj does that quote unquote incubation.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
great.
we get him to do it because it doesn't go to the desk level, the client facing people. So he does that. Once he's got it to the stage where he's like, okay, then we'll put it in the hands of one of the recruiters, right? Depending on what the tech's going to do, we'll choose, and then they'll work through it and feedback every day, after every project, whatever it is they did. Once that happens, all the glitches are done, we then roll it out to the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Right. For the very reason that you just said.
Yeah.
Because else you're putting it's like, okay, what does this do? Well, I think it does this. Right. And everybody's learning. Well, when they're all learning, they're not talking to the clients or the candidates, right?
And as an agency owner or CEO at an agency, you are just by nature more risk tolerant, change tolerant than someone that is typically, I'll say, employed at an agency. So you're totally fine. You're a lot more capable at dealing with kind of the thrashes of the market and the changes in the landscape. Other folks, they don't want to deal with that. That actually scares them. So you have to isolate them. So I think the way you're doing it is really good.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I'd be just like, okay, yeah, whatever. Right? Because it's like, okay, next things come.
Yeah.
Whereas Sand, he'd really, you guys know, he has a million questions before he even agrees to look at a contract, right? But I think that's what you need, because then it is intentional decision making.
Yeah.
Not oh my God, we got a problem. Who's the first person that says they can fix it? Which kind of unfortunately happens in a smaller business, because they're just like, okay, my recruiters are getting frustrated with XYZ.
Yeah.
Right? Or who was that person that rung me? Okay, let's get them in. How soon can you implement? Whereas we go the other way, we intentionally slow the process down, right?
Yeah.
It also means that we're a pain in the ass to work with sometimes, as your guys are going to find out, right? But I mean, this has been really, really good. I know we're coming up to time.
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts to someone listening to this? What's the last thing you want to say to them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is technology, AI, which is the new thing. There's these changes that happen all the time throughout history. The car was not a thing once.
Yep.
Then computers came along. Now AI is here, right? Everybody's going to continue to find a place in the world. Things are going to be very fear based and over indexed, I think, on the fear for a while. Everything's going to be totally fine. And it's just learning how to adapt to the new landscape is the key thing that I would focus on. And really just think, what problems do you have that are the highest priority and how can you solve them? AI or not AI? That's the core thing I'd be looking at. But I think there's a lot of fear out there right now with AI that I don't think is necessarily justified, right? Or like not justified, but I don't think they need to be so fearful.
Here's the thing. Our industry is being disrupted whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is everything has been disrupted. Work
Oh,
from
everything.
home was not a thing.
And there will be another disruption
Exactly.
in 5 years, another disruption in 10 years,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So don't get distracted and over-index on that current thing that's happening.
Yeah. Amazing. Ryan, if people are watching this and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can either follow me on LinkedIn. My name's Ryan Frampton. I should pop up. And then if you want to check out a demo or do a free trial of Quil to just see if it fits your business, feel free to go to www.quil.ai. So Quil with one L, because we didn't want to spend all that money to buy the 2L.
Ryan, thank you ever so much for your time. Really appreciate it. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Talent Titans, brought to you by Recruitment Professional Forum, where they're building a grassroots community for professionals and leaders in the recruitment industry to collaborate, advocate, and advance the profession. If you liked or were inspired by what you heard, make sure to follow, subscribe, and even leave a review. It lets more talented recruiters like you find the show. Until next time, keep on being a talent titan.